By Arizona Congressman Trent Franks. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. We're just getting word of this shooting at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, your home state. Your reaction, sir?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. And my first reaction always in these situations, having, two little twins at home and a wife, is just, I am so sorry that people have had to go through this, and I just pray God's blessing and comfort upon them. That's my first reaction.
I think that is a universal sentiment this morning, Congressman. Thank you for sharing that. We do share it with you. There's a discussion all around the country right now about arming students, arming teachers on campus. We don't know the identity of the victims. We don't know the identity of the shooter on this campus. But is this an argument for or against having guns on university campuses?
Well, I understand on this campus that, except in rare circumstances, it wasn't allowed to have guns on campus. And I think that one thing you'll see as a pattern in these mass shootings is that these shooters deliberately choose a place where they know that no one can defend themselves, where they know that they are not going to face someone that's armed. And I think that's a tragedy because, all through history, I suppose, the evil and malevolent people of the world have preferred unarmed victims. And I would just say this, usually if you look at some of these shootings, the one in Oregon, for instance, that gentleman wasn't, that evil SOB wasn't stopped until the police were there who had guns. And very few people would say that we should disarm the police. And if that's the case, then it's really not the guns, is it? It's whose hands the gun is in. And we protect our businesses. We protect our businesses with guns, our banks, our money. We protect politicians with guns. But when it comes to our children, the most precious treasure God ever gives us, we protect them with a little sign that says no guns allowed.
Congressman?
And there's a problem there.
Congressman, it could be both, though, couldn't it? It could be the people and it could be the guns. And I think that's a discussion and a debate that's been had again and again over the last several days. I don't want to do it again right now, except to say I think the sentiment that's most universal this morning as we sit here at 7:03 Eastern Time, 1 week from the shootings in Roseburg, is again. Yeah. And I think the saddest thing that most people will agree on is that I don't think anyone's surprised this morning.
Well, that's an extremely good point, and I think that somehow it should refocus our attention on why these monsters do these things. And it's going to be critically important to do that, because otherwise they'll find some way to do it. Unless we're willing to outlaw pressure cookers, they'll find some mechanism to hurt people, and we have to find out what causes it, whether it's copycats, whether it's mental illness, whatever it is. But we have to make sure that, number one, we can do everything we can to prevent these things, and number two, if there are malevolent armed people out there, that they don't face an unarmed victim all of the time.
Congressman, I want to shift gears right now, and again, our concern and our thoughts are with Flagstaff and the Northern Arizona University campus, and if we learn more, we'll get you that information right away. But I want to talk about what's going on right where you are right now, the U.S. Capitol, the House of Representatives, because there's a sense that it's chaos right now. Yesterday, the stunning announcement from Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy that he will drop out of the race for Speaker. One of the reasons is you are part of the Freedom Caucus, House Republicans, some 40 members, who did not want him to reach the Speaker's chair. What have you won this morning?
Well, the truth is, and I know that it's impossible for people to see what really happens in the inner machinations of Congress, but the truth is that Freedom Caucus wanted to do some things that were, I think, good for the country, and there was no malice on our part toward Kevin McCarthy. I can especially express to you that I have nothing but the greatest of respect and affection for Kevin McCarthy. I think what he did yesterday demonstrated to the whole world that he wants what's best for the country. I don't know whether it was best for the country or not. What I do know is that that was his intention. Statesmanship was on display in his life. And so to answer your question specifically, there were a lot of dynamics, but the most hidden elephant in the room is the Senate filibuster. It is causing the House caucus to be torn pieces because we can't get anything voted on, and then the base out there thinks that Republicans and the Congress are doing nothing.
The Senate filibuster didn't keep you from nominating a speaker yesterday. And
the
you
Senate
said
filibuster was the reason that we had a change in leadership in this House.
because of what John Boehner could not achieve as Speaker.
Because he always appeared weak when really it wasn't weakness on his part. It was the inability to repeal the laws of mathematics. The House passed legislation time after time after time after time, only to go over to the Senate and they say, well, we're not voting on it. You guys are shutting the government down.
Congressman?
The media has not focused on that. And at least that should be part of the debate.
You were saying you were doing this on behalf of the American people. That's the goal of the Freedom Caucus right there.
It is the goal.
The
yes,
Freedom
sir.
Caucus is 40 people. It's 40 members of Congress.
Right.
If we can put up the statistic right now, it's about 30 to 40 members of Congress. There are 247 Republican members of Congress. So it's less than 10% of the membership of the House of Representatives, less than 20% of the Republican membership. Is that 10% of Congress really speaking for the American people and the other 90% not? Whose will are you doing here?
Well,
I don't think 90% wants.
I would be the first to tell you that I think in terms of the issues that we believe in, that 90% of the caucus is with us. Maybe there's a difference in how we approach things, but 90% of the caucus is with us on
yesterday, that's
issues.
not the case. McCarthy had the majority. McCarthy clearly had the majority of people willing to nominate him for Speaker, so you didn't have the majority with you yesterday.
I think if Mr. McCarthy had gained the nomination, and I think there's a very good chance he would have, you would have seen him supported on the floor. That's my particular opinion. And, you know, some of us believe that you do everything you can in the primary to maximize the best you can for what you believe, and then you do what's right when the general election comes and you get together. And I don't see this as anything unusual. What I do see is that the people are missing entirely the reason for the division and for the change in leadership in the first place. We had honorable leaders. Unfortunately, they are profoundly unpopular among the Republican base because the Republican base knows somewhere in the back of their heart that we're losing America, and they see that the Obama administration has created chaos all over the world, and they're frustrated and they want to see something happen. And when we're unable to affect that, then they think it's weakness on our part, when really we are affecting it, we are passing it in the House, and we never get a vote in the Senate.
Paul Ryan. A lot of people want Paul Ryan to throw his hat into the ring, or at least be willing to be drawn into the ring. He said no, not just no, but no way. He said it twice. Would you support Paul Ryan to be the next Speaker?
Well, I'm not going to make a pronouncement here on television, but I will say to you that I think Paul Ryan would make a great Speaker. And people like him are the kinds of people that we need. The truth is, however, the reason that there's such reticence on the part of people in the rank and file to get into leadership is because they know they're going to face the same equation that the previous leaders did.
He's going to face the Freedom Caucus. He's going to face the Freedom Caucus. I think that's one of the reasons he's reluctant to get in. Let me just show you this. You said people like him are what we need. Do you know who are people like Paul Ryan? Let me show you the book that he wrote. I think we have it here. He wrote Young Guns with Eric Cantor and Kevin McCarthy. Eric Cantor is someone who was run out of office in a Republican primary. Kevin McCarthy was the guy who just quit the race yesterday because of the Freedom Caucus. People like Paul Ryan are the ones that you guys ran out. So is it intellectually consistent to support Paul Ryan?
Yeah, I have absolutely the greatest respect for all three of those men that you mentioned. And that's a fact. What you're not understanding here is that the reason that there's such dissension in the House is because we're trying to gain the traction to overcome this filibuster. And there's only two ways we can do it. We either have to change that rule, and that falls on Mr. McConnell primarily, or we have to raise the filibuster to such a high degree of visibility that it's no longer tenable to abuse it, as Senate Democrats have done. And that creates a lot of effort to create the pressure in the House, and that's what's tearing us apart. Now, I know that maybe you'll look at that in the future, but there's not much disagreement here as it may sound.
Congressman Trent Franks, I am completely willing to accept the notion that there's dysfunction in the Senate as well. I don't think the only place that exists is the House of Representatives. Thank you so much for being with us.
I appreciate you.